What do you do when your plans in life are changed from 1 minute to another? Welcome to episode 57, Healing Through Fitness, with my amazing guest, Taylor Hinton from Hintonation. Just a bit about Taylor, because you know he'll be doing the main talking today. I'm just here to guide you towards his amazing story. At just 19 years old, Taylor's plans of being a professional football player came to a sudden and abrupt halt. In the summer of 2015, while preparing for a second season, he encumbered a career-ending spinal injury. Fast forward a few years, Taylor created Hintonation, online coaching, all-encompassing, bringing your nutrition and exercises needs to the forefront of your priorities. This is where Hintonation will double down on your efforts to get into the body you have always wanted and break barriers to realize your full potential. Taylor thinks that an athletic body is an aesthetic body. Welcome, Taylor. It is amazing to have you with us today.
Roxanne, thank you so much for having me. I've been waiting to do this for a long time with you, so this is going to be great. Thanks so much.
I am truly privileged to have you here with me, Taylor. And as I told you before, as I read your story today earlier, I was really mind blown. At one point, after you have suffered that injury, what an unfortunate event. Things happen. We cannot foresee many things in life. You mentioned that you had even more drive than before. You didn't stop there. And I know, since I'm also an athletic person, I love to go to the gym. I take care of my health as much as possible. Many people stop at one point when things just didn't go as they planned. But you kept on going, and I admire that. I applaud that. Taylor, can you please tell us all about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for the privilege to be able to share this. I hope I'm going to do my best to keep the tears from going out, because it's pretty emotional for me to retouch every now and then. So, but yeah, I mean, again, like, my name is Taylor Hinton, and I'm the owner of Hintonation Health and Lifestyle Coaching. I do a performance-based programming for people, mostly online, and more recently started taking on some clients locally in the area, but they're all from people that are kind of in my online community. So I like to help people try to achieve their health and fitness goals with custom training protocols, custom nutrition, and accountability checks. And I launched my business in February of 2022 while still working my job as a manager of another gym. In June that same year, so just a few months after having launched, I was able to quit my job and make Hintonation online coaching my full-time passion. So that's been amazing for me. And to get started with everything, like, it really started from a really young age. My parents got me involved in sports early on in life, and football was the one that really resonated with me. Probably a big influence for that was because my father is from, the southern United States, and if you know anything about down there, they like basically eat and breathe football. And by football, it's like American rules football, right? And so it absolutely consumed me. I loved it, and my dad became my football coach at the age of 6 is when I started playing. And like you touched on already, like, everything kind of tragically came to a sudden halt and end for me with football at 19. So it was a massive dedication that I had in my life towards football. And I really tried to commit myself to becoming the best athlete that I could. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I outworked like everybody on and off the field. I was never the biggest guy. I normally wasn't even really an average size guy. I was typically one of the smaller guys in the field. And to give you an example of what that was like, I mean, my counterpart, a guy that we worked closely together in a similar position, he was of the ideal stature. He was 6'2", 215 pounds in high school. Kid's 17 years old. And at the same age, I'm 5'8" at that time, and I was 160 pounds. So just a tiny little guy, but really doing everything I could to outperform. And I really, despite my size, I never let that get a hold of me. I trained in the off season to get bigger and stronger and faster. And I truly believed that I was going to be a professional football player. I had every belief that that was going to happen for me, regardless of, my stature. So throughout my youth and my high school career and high school football years, I was always like a key player on my team. I was team captain most of those years, and I helped my teams finish with a winning record. So just about every single year that we played, we went either undefeated or only having lost a couple games. And of course, it's a team sport. It wasn't all me by any means, but I know that I had a key role in those games and those seasons. In my senior year of high school football, I made Team BC, which is a group of the top football players in British Columbia in our province. And we traveled to Texas to take on Team Europe and to take on Team USA. For some reason, I don't know how this happened. It was beyond my scope at the time when I was a kid, but the previous year, our province had never actually paid our admission fees somehow. We were behind or overdue or something. So at no fault of my own or the kids at the time, like we were not able to play for the Canada Cup. For us, that was like pretty disheartening to hear initially. And this is just a bit of a sidebar, but it's interesting in British Columbia, in our province, we play American style rules for football. And there's a big difference. There's a couple of different things, but they make a massive impact on how the game is played. And so for us, it was kind of a bit of an advantage. We were able to go and play against American teams with the same rules that we were used to doing. So yeah, we ended up flying down to Texas. We played in the Alamo Dome, which is a massive facility, a massive stadium over there where they play like all the college games in Texas. And Texas football is like that next level of football. It's not just like college football, but it's like the next level. The best of college football that you can get is in the Southern United States. So we flew down to Texas. We're playing against Team Europe and Team USA, just our tiny little province versus these entire countries. And somehow our team was made up of U18, so under 18 years old. And then the American team was made up of U19s, so they had another year on us. And then the European teams were U22. There were some guys that were married walking around in the hotel that we're walking past, and like we thought these guys were coaches when we saw them. I was like, oh my God, we're playing against that guy. He is a fully grown man. And so that was terrifying. But I mean, despite that, we won both of those games against Team USA and against Team Europe, which was a massive accomplishment. We ended up at that point, we're now world champions. And it was pretty incredible for us. That was one of the biggest accomplishments in my football career, at least. So after high school, I rejected university offers and decided to go to the Langley Rams. It's a Canadian junior football league team, and it's post-secondary football. So it's not high school football anymore. It's not university football because there's no schooling, but it's the university level athletes who decided to not go to school. That was my decision to go. Despite having an offer to UBC, I basically cut myself short. And mentally, this is like one of the faults that I have to admit is that I didn't believe in myself that I'd be able to go to the next level at a university like UBC and compete with those guys and switch different positions. I had a lot of different things in my head that I convinced myself otherwise of actually taking that next step. But despite that, I went to the Langley Rams and had a ton of success there in my very first year. I was recognized by a couple of the professional scouts, and at only 18 years old, I made the first team on defense. So I was rotating in as a starter. That was a really big deal for me because it's not very common for rookies in CGFL to get a lot of playing time. I had a great season, had a lot of promise heading into the next 3 years. There's a lot of tearing up and a lot of learning and developing that I could do at such a young age into that division, and had a real chance of going pro, really. But everything changed for me, like we were talking about, when I was 19. And it was the off season for the 2015 season with that team, the Rams. I strained my back training in that season, and it was just a few weeks prior to the lead up to that season actually starting. But at the time, I didn't really know how bad that injury was, and I wrote it off as just this common muscle strain. You get that all the time as a kid playing contact sports, very common. And I figured it'd pass in a few days, but I took my standard approach. I tried to nurture myself back to health, doing a lot of foam rolling on my back, icing it, a little bit of extra time stretching it, just the common stuff that as a kid, you're, 19, 20 years old, you think that you're doing everything right. I avoided movements that I could, and that would put like undue stress on my back. And the pain did subside, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it still felt a little bit unstable. Despite that, I was like, there's no way that I can pull back right now. We only have a couple of weeks before the season kicks up. I'm expected to come in and make a big difference and impact this team. It concerned me, but I basically was just like, you know what, like, let's get through this. I'll be able to manage pain. It's just pain. It's fine. my back continued to bother me. And now the spring camp has begun. We're doing our 2-a-days. It's hot out, and we're, doing training first thing in the morning and another training session late at night. And we have like education stuff going on midday. So we're fully committed. We're like everyone's taking time off work to do this 2 weeks of like intense training. And I was getting a little bit older. I had a bit more experience. My conversations with my coaches before that season, heading into that season, were giving me a lot of confidence that I was going to be taking this starting spot. So a lot of thoughts are going through my head at the time. I was thinking, man, like I'm only 19 years old. I have 3 years left to develop and then go to the pros. I've gone further than my father. He's going to be so proud of me, and he was. And everything is paying off. All this time spent training and putting all that time in the gym is going to be all worth it. Like I really have a serious shot at going to the next level. And it was on May 13th in 2016. We're now getting into that season. And it was second day of spring camp. We're about 20 minutes into our warm-up, and one of our warm-up drills was to jump up real high for the ball, catch it, come down with it. I did that. I jumped up real high, and as soon as I landed on the ground, I had this sharp pain that fired down both my legs from my spine. It felt like an electric shock that just went straight down my legs. I fell to the ground immediately. I couldn't even help myself. I had to fall to the ground. I took a minute. I got up slowly. And at that point, I knew that there was something wrong, that it was out of my control, and it wasn't just pain. I had no idea. I went to the doctor the next day. He assessed me for having a herniated disc. So basically, the little gelatin-like discs in between the vertebrae and your spine, they're there to help protect against any compression. And during my training that I had a few weeks ago, when I heard it initially, what happened is one of those gelatin-type like discs jutted out sideways and was bumping against a nerve. That's not the word. It's not like a broken back, but it gave me basically no ability to heal in time for that season. I don't know what I'm doing. Like at this point, I'm just hearing my doctor tell me these things, and I'm terrified. So I have no idea. And I'm asking him, what are my solutions? What are my options? And he basically, after me continuing to fight with him in the doctor's office about what solutions we had to try to get back in the field, I'll never forget these words. And what he said to me is, if you get hit just right, you can be paralyzed forever. And I got chills thinking about how that would affect my life forever and what kind of risk I'm really putting myself at. I had to really seriously evaluate everything that I was working for. And I had, unfortunately, had to make the decision that football was like taken away from me forever. So without any options, I had to turn my back away from football, and I had to rediscover what my purpose would be in life. And the next 18 months for me were really rough. And I have to be super vulnerable and super honest with you. I mean, I was on, I think, the verge of depression. I don't want to discount what that really is for a lot of people who have been diagnosed with it, because I didn't go to the doctor to get diagnosed for depression. But, I had no goals. I had no direction. My relationship ended with my high school sweetheart at the time. I started smoking weed every single day. I couldn't push myself because I couldn't work through that pain. I couldn't push myself and exert myself in the gym properly the way that I've, been used to doing for my whole life. And the only thing for me that kept me steady and like kept me relatively sane at the time was working. So I worked 7 days a week. I had 2 different jobs. I worked with my dad in the mornings, so we were done at 2:00. I would go coach football 5 days a week, from 2:30 to 4:30, and then I would rush over to the next job. That was a construction place, and I worked from 5 to 9. And then after that, that's when I would go to the gym and do these, for lack of better words, half-assed workouts that I couldn't push myself. That's how I distracted myself for like 6 months. But I knew that this wasn't sustainable. I needed a way out. I started looking into ways that I can improve my stabilizer muscles. So all those smaller muscles that could help get my back up to health. And I've researched endlessly online and became obsessed with corrective exercise. It's just, I had to fix my back. And the only solution from the doctor was surgery or just rest. And I couldn't do that anymore. So I developed a plan over time, and it helped me heal my body back up. I was able to slowly get back into my strength training. Again, 18 months of me figuring this out as a kid, just trying to slowly get back into it. And then after healing my back, I leaned into the art of bodybuilding because I wanted to protect myself from getting hurt like that again. So my training shifted from heavy barbell stuff, like heavy free weight and dynamic movements, over into more machine-based exercises to help sculpt my muscles. And that was fun because I could challenge and push myself without having the risk of injury, because I could support my back better with those machines. So I kept doing that for probably another 6 months. I already had like, relative, muscularity from doing sports. And now I was really focusing on the muscle building part of it. And then at 21 years old, I was approached by a couple in the gym. And you see these two people come up to me, and I was like, these guys have been working out for a long time. They're pretty big and jacked up, and they're both really muscular. Um, and they've clearly been training for a long time. So they identified themselves as bodybuilding coaches and asked if they could coach me for free in a bodybuilding competition. And I was really caught off guard. I initially was like, absolutely no way, I'm not doing this. I totally scoffed at the idea of shaving my entire body and standing on stage basically naked and like having people judge me off of the way that I looked. With this fake spray tan. So I was just like, not a chance. I make fun of that stuff on the daily. No thanks. Despite that, a few weeks later, I attended a local bodybuilding competition, coincidentally, to support my friends. It was their first time, and I went over there to go watch. And then, of course, as I sit down, those two coaches, they come down and sit down right beside me on either side of me. And when the show is over, they both look over at me and they're like, so you want to try it out? I was like, yeah, let's do this. I was so jacked up. I was so excited for that. I was like, okay, let's do this thing. Let's try bodybuilding. It's going to be a big challenge. And that's what I wanted out of it. I really wanted that push and that next level of like really committing yourself to something again. It wasn't what I loved, but it was at least something that was going to challenge me mentally and physically. So yeah, I agreed to it. I said, hey, let's go for it. I saw bodybuilding as a huge opportunity to push my body to the limits again. And it gave me a bit of a spark of excitement that reminded me of when I was playing football. So 6 months later, dieting, lifting weights, extra cardio, feeling chronically hungry immediately after you have a meal. You're just as hungry right after, going to bed hungry, waking up hungry. I took the stage. I walked away with second place in my very first competition. 2 weeks later was the next competition that I had qualified for by taking second place. I won first place in the second one. That was the BC Cup for the province. And then from there, I was now qualified for the national championship, which was like 2 years down the road. I was doing my workouts. I was getting ready for that. I'm bulking up again, slowly taking my time. I got 2 years to develop and grow. And that's what really opened my eyes to nutrition. And that's actually what I focused on first with my business before ever doing the workout side of things, which is, a little bit unorthodox, as most people, when they're thinking of like health and fitness, the first thing they think about is lifting weights. And for me, it was about how to eat the right types of foods and then how to also just incorporate lifestyle into your nutrition. So kind of like what you touched on before, like I am not a meal plan coach. I'm not a meal plan guy. I've never handed my clients a meal plan. I don't like writing them. Nobody likes following them. And why would you restrict yourself when ultimately, after you hit that extrinsic goal, you're going to want to get back into eating normal foods again and enjoying restaurants and going out with friends. So for me, it was like, how can we continue doing this and still hit our goals and just be reasonable and responsible with the food that we're eating? And that's what drove me to get my nutrition certification through Precision Nutrition. It's a great company. They have an online-based program that helps teach people how to do that, and then also how to coach individuals with eating. So it's been very, very helpful for me and my clients. It's why it was more than just like working out and eating. It was about how like we can incorporate lifestyle together. So it talked about like the science of timing nutrition and eating the right types of ratios of carbs and fats and proteins. And it really like elevated my level of bodybuilding. I never actually, even in bodybuilding, I never did a meal plan. I virtually ate what I wanted with a few different restrictions all the way up until the show day. I was still eating like at one point, I think my mom calls them bear poop cookies, and they're like chocolate and oat cookie things that she makes. And I had that like 3 days before my bodybuilding show. So, and then ended up winning it. So there's definitely no reason why you have to have a meal plan. And that's something that I love to really preach with my clients and anybody else who's interested in this stuff. So yeah, I ate a macronutrient balanced diet, followed the training protocol, and it was really cool to see how my body changed over time. At that point, as I was getting ready for this competition, I'm watching Netflix and fitness stuff on Netflix. I'm just so like obsessed with this whole thing. And I come across something that was called, and if your followers haven't seen this, you got to write this down. They got to watch this. It's called Fittest on Earth 2016. And then there's a 2017 video as well. These are, of course, like a little bit older now, but it really was my very first time looking at CrossFit from a high level perspective. And anybody who knows or doesn't even know anything about CrossFit, CrossFit is basically the combination of every modality of fitness and throw it all together and put it in a blender and just do it at the same time. So you take like your powerlifting with the big heavy weights that you're slinging over your head. You take the Olympic lifting, that's more of the slinging over your head. The powerlifting is like the big heavy weights. You take your swimming and your running and your jumping and like cross country, like all of that stuff, and you make one workout out of that. And it was initially completely like ridiculed online. Everybody who knew anything about CrossFit or took a look at it or searched it up, you'd find these ridiculous videos of amateurs who had no idea what they were doing and probably had a really poor coach who didn't know what they were doing either. So I got a bad rap. But this opened my eyes to it. And these people were super athletic. They were moving incredible amounts of weight, like 400 pounds they're pulling off the ground, and then going for a 5K run, and then swimming. And they're doing it all within an hour of it. Like it's all just done at the same time. So, and then looking at them, I'm looking at these people, I'm like, holy crap, they look incredible. So there was, in my opinion, at that point, there was no reason why myself or anybody else who wants to generally just be their fittest self should follow a common bodybuilder type program where they go in and they do chest on one day, legs on another day, because that's what bodybuilding is. It's really just sculpting certain muscle groups. But do we need to sculpt them all the time, or can we focus on workouts and exercise that is going to fit regular life, like needing to lift heavy things and being able to have the cardiovascular endurance to go for a hike with your friends for a couple hours and not be too super pooped afterwards? So that's what my fitness and my protocol has kind of changed to. I switched over from bodybuilding. I'll wrap this part up. Sorry for the long chat here, but I bodybuilding, like as soon as I watched that video, I was like, nope. I told my coaches, I was like, hey, I'm not doing bodybuilding anymore. It was great. Thank you so much. It's just not my passion. I don't love it. And then hung up and I joined a CrossFit gym the next day and I started going there and learning it. And I lost the muscle. Sure. I lost all the big bulky stuff, but it kept my strength. And I started to develop other areas that I never had. Like I'm doing muscle ups where you're grabbing the rings, you know, like gymnastics rings and pulling yourself up and then coming back down and handstand walking and lifting, you know, 80 pounds overhead and lunging forward unbalanced, like things that I had never tried to do before. It was so cool to start to expand my fitness there. And again, for me, like taking this back to being a competitor and somebody who wants to always push to get better and better and better, CrossFit was that next level for me. It wasn't about muscle building all the time. It was about how can I expand my fitness in other modalities? And that's what CrossFit offered. So I did that for a little bit. At some point, I said, you know what, this is really, really good, but I'm not seeing the level of progression in my workouts that I would like to see. If you ever go to a CrossFit gym, community 10 out of 10. They're amazing. They're so fun. They're so incredible. And CrossFit gyms will, the owners of them will be very candid with you with saying, yeah, it is a little bit culty. And it is. It's fun. Everybody gets together and they all work out together and they have their own lingo and their own like vocabulary and stuff. But if you're an athlete who's really trying to incrementally get better and better and better, CrossFit gyms are likely not the best solution for you because they're every single day a new workout that you've never done. There's no real assigned progression to those workouts. Of course, like some coaches can like kind of do some manipulating there, but for me, that meant that I had to incorporate CrossFit into a progressive workout, a workout program that would help me develop some of those smaller skills. Like, for example, if I wanted to squat heavier weights, I had to do more squats that slowly progress the weights a little higher and higher and higher. For CrossFit by itself doesn't typically offer that. So I found a coach again. I had coaches throughout my whole life. I have a coach right now. I'm a fitness coach and I have another coach that does my programming for me too. And it's just something that you do as somebody who's trying to get better. You always hire the next guy, right? And let them help you. So hired this guy. He helped me with the CrossFit, the progressions, learned a lot about that, worked in the gym, developed my own business, started coaching people online. And I think that's kind of where I'm at now. If I were to close it, yeah, that's where I'm at now. I'm in a place where I'm continuing to develop myself. I have goals of lifting 400 pounds on my back. That's my current goal right now. And my coach is helping me with that. I'm helping 25 of my clients with their own personal goals. And it's incredible to be able to contribute that way. And honestly, like if I could be completely honest with you, living the absolute dream, being able to serve people with the same passions that I have. So it's been great.
Wow, what a phenomenal storyteller. I could really listen to you for hours, and I'm sure there's so much more to add. This is amazing, and honestly, it's just unbelievable. how you got to push yourself. And you do this every single day. You don't
Yeah.
settle with the level where you are at. And this is amazing. And I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, Taylor, how do you see fear? Do you feel that it has given you some great lessons, or how has your relationship with fear changed through the years?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And thank you so much for asking. I mean, so I think that it's important to have a certain level of fear all the time. Um, and it's different for everybody. But fear is something that drives us forward. Fear is something that makes us be better people. And I think that if you have zero fear all the time, I think that if you at work or in your workouts or in your relationship or there's maybe a contrasting word, but it's very, very close to fear. And I think that it's healthy and important to have a certain level of that because it keeps you sharp. It keeps you continuing to say that I'm not going to settle for where I'm at right now, because if I settle, then I die. If I in this, it sounds maybe a little bit crass for me to say it, but for me in my simple-minded ways of how I operate, if I get complacent by, I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about, if my client doesn't make progress next week, whatever, we got another week, right? It we if we have that mind of like, it's okay, don't worry, don't worry about anything. Don't worry means don't have fear. If you don't have any fear, then you have nothing that's really pushing you forward. So my relationship has changed with fear for sure, where I mean, and I'm sure almost every single guy and gal can relate to this. As a kid, you're worried about disappointing certain individuals who are older, more superior than you, your parents, your mentors, people you look up to in sports. And my fear was that initially, like in football, I had my football coach was like, I knew about my football coach before he ever knew about me. When I was 10 years old, it's in our community. This guy, his name is Dennis Kelly, and he had been coaching in my community for probably 40 years. Like everybody knows this guy. And if you are going to go play football in this area, you are going to go play for Dennis Kelly. So when I was a kid growing up playing community football, just all the little fun, fluffy stuff, my dad was like, got to think about Dennis Kelly. Like we got to keep getting better now because you want to play for that coach. Like that's what the mentality was. So when I was playing for Dennis Kelly, I was, terrified of this guy, but I wanted to impress him so much. And I think that my relationship is with fear has kind of shifted a little bit from being terrified of somebody to being terrified of not being able to support somebody. That's where I think it's changed for me now. Because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for my clients to make sure that they get the results, that when they call and they say, hey, this is what I want to do, and I trust that you can help me with that. It's you have to have a little bit of fear that you wouldn't be able to do it, because otherwise you get complacent and you don't serve them as best as you could. So I hope that answers the question.
I love it. It makes so much sense. Using fear as a drive to
Mm-hmm.
keep on pushing and doing better for your clients. And I'm so grateful that you mentioned this. And your clients are truly blessed. And since you mentioned your clients, Taylor, can you please tell us about Hintonation? What does it stand for, and how can people get in touch with you? Because I'm sure that after listening to your amazing story,
Yeah.
they will want to at least watch one of your live sessions on IG, which I love. You see me sometimes looking, it's so inspiring. Thank you for doing that. So please tell
Yeah.
us about Hintonation and where can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. I mean, it's not a very fancy name, or it's not a big fancy story for the name Hintonation. I made that name on Instagram when I was like probably 17 years old. And I don't know why it just kind of rolled on to the screen, and I looked at it and I said to myself, Hintonation. Okay, cool. And maybe I did it with like a bit of an ego, like Hinton is my last name and the nation, the Hintonation. So at 17 years old is when I made that name. I switched it at one point, and then somebody came up to me in the gym and they were like, dude, switch your name back. Hintonation is that's your Hintonation. You have to have that.
It's
So that was when I
catchy,
was
yeah.
it's kind of catchy. Yeah. And so that's where I got it from. I figured, if I already have a decent little following and people know me as Hintonation on Instagram, I'm gonna brand myself as Hintonation. And the people who like that, the people who resonate with that, they're gonna join my side. The people who don't, that's totally okay. There's lots of other coaches who can help them too. To make it really simple, I mean, there's a lot of different things that come with my coaching, but the accountability is the biggest piece. And that's something that literally everybody can benefit from. And that's part of the reason why I have a coach too. But I think the accountability is so important because whether you have the knowledge or experience to do the exercises, if you don't dedicate yourself to doing it regularly and you don't have somebody watching you to push you, then it's harder to always do it for yourself sometimes. It's easier to do it for somebody else. Same thing as a parent who needs to make sure their kid is fed. If they were going to be starving and they were just by themselves, it was just a parent, so they're not a parent, they're just a single individual, they may go another day without, eating if they really, were bored or lazy or didn't have the funds or something. But if you have a little one to feed, you're going to do anything in your power to make sure that you can keep their belly fed. So it's having somebody else holding you account to getting to your goals. And that's why I even have some personal trainers that are in my program. They know what to do, but they want me to kick their ass. So yeah, the accountability is the biggest piece. The custom training program, so it's different for everybody. I always give my clients in their first week what I like to call metrics. And these metrics are test exercises. I have them send videos of themselves doing these movements so I can see any muscle imbalances. From there, they're going to get a mobility routine that's going to be emailed over to them based off of their muscle imbalances so that we can help strengthen the weak areas and loosen up the tighter areas. They're also going to get a progressive workout program that's going to be adjusted as they get better and better and better. One of my clients, she started off, she had a program a long time ago with somebody else. She did really well with them. They're just like the location thing didn't work and she was doing in person. So she found me online. And in her last check-in, she's just dropped 4 pounds in 1 week, and it's just been because we started off slow and slowly progressed up. Nutrition customizations, they're going to get like 150 different types of meals from a meal library that I've partnered with somebody else. So they've given me access to give to my clients so they can play around with different types of foods. They're getting the macronutrients adjusted. That's a bit of a conversation, but basically I manipulate how many grams of proteins, fats, and carbs that they're going to take in each week to make sure that they can hit their goals. And then I do like team hikes. So there's a lot of people that are local. And so I bring them together on a monthly basis. We go for a little hike in the area, take some photos together, have some fun. I do live trainings on my Instagram or on my Facebook private Facebook page there too. And then there's also a local supplement store that I partnered with, and anybody can go there that's in my program. I get 20% off. So it's been great. There's a lot of cool stuff that comes with it. Yeah. People can find me on Instagram, Hintonation. So it's with an underscore at the end. So HINTONATION. There's just one N in the middle there with an underscore at the end. That's my Instagram. And then my name on Facebook. That's really where I'm found, is on those two, Taylor Hinton on Facebook.
Wow. Taylor, I see Hintonation as a great lifestyle because you make it fun. And you are so right. Let's not get into these meal plans because no one wants to keep their entire lives eating the same thing at maybe the same hours. It's not doable.
Yeah.
And it's really tough for our mental health. So
Yeah,
thank you so much
absolutely.
for doing what you do. Thank you for not stopping when, to be honest, you have had all the reasons to. And again, I know so many amazing people that have stopped, but listening to you, and I hope they get to listen to this podcast. It is going to be heavily promoted, that they can really make a difference. You can always look for a solution. Just maybe
Yes,
turn your head
absolutely.
a few centimeters to the left and to the right.
Yes.
There's always something amazing that you can do. And
Yeah.
Taylor, this has been amazing. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for
Yeah.
your time and for your great wisdom. And I look forward to seeing more of your great live sessions on Instagram.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. Again, thanks so much for having me. It's been great to actually connect with you. So it's been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Taylor.